This is Consumer Friend.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Consumer Friend podcast, where we take a light-hearted yet insightful look at all things consumer related. As ever, I'm joined by the brilliant Louise Baxter. Hi LouBax, how are you?
I'm good, thanks Adam.
Good.
Adam was on the radio this morning.
Yes, I was, thank you very much.
And what were you talking about, Ad?
I was on Radio Leicester talking about the Barclays outage over the weekend. It was
back to the fact that you have a voice and a face for radio, and you're very easy to listen to, and you spoke for 4 minutes as well on the radio this morning. 4 whole minutes.
I was told it was going to be between 7 and 10 minutes, so maybe they cut me off.
No, I think you were really succinct, and you got all of the information about what
all
your
my
rights
points
are.
across.
It was really good. Yeah.
That was Radio Leicester.
I made Linny listen to it this morning as well. My mum listened to it too.
Good,
she got bored after a minute and started talking over you, so I had to pause it, but I didn't.
No, that's fair. I that's acceptable. That's absolutely fine. Thank you very much. Right, today we are diving into the world of romance fraud, an issue that affects thousands of people each year. With online communication making it easier than ever to contact, it's also become a tool for deception. Joining us today is Becky Holmes, author of the absolutely brilliant book Keanu Reeves Is Not in Love with You. Becky has taken her fascinating experience of interacting with individuals involved in online deception and turned them into a must-read for anyone who has ever received suspiciously charming message. Lou, just quickly, have you ever received a suspiciously charming message in your inbox, in your DMs?
In my DMs?
This is what I've been told is what it is. It's a DM.
I have, because I have dabbled in the world of internet dating, haven't I? So, yes, I have had fake people come into my DMs.
Have you ever had celebrities coming into your DMs?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Because
Well, you, because you're on the radio.
What, just a text message every morning? Morning, Lou. Yeah. What's going on today?
Yeah, brilliant.
I'm not too sure that qualifies. So we are absolutely thrilled to have Becky here to share her experiences, her approach to exposing fraudulent behaviour, and her tips on how to stay alert when navigating online interactions. So Becky is a writer. She's a comedian, an online investigator who has gained widespread recognition for her witty and sharp responses to individuals attempting to exploit others online. Through humour and a keen eye for deception, she raises awareness about romance fraud and manipulative online behaviour, making serious topics more accessible and engaging. Her work is not just about exposing dishonest schemes, it's about empowering people to recognise red flags and take control of their online interactions. Becky, thank you so much for coming on to our podcast. How are you?
I'm all right. I've never been called a comedian before. That was exciting.
I am definitely classifying you as comedian after reading your book.
And Lou, I take exception to you saying that you haven't had charming DMs, because I've WhatsApped you before and I'm incredibly charming. Yeah, so can we just clear that? Yeah, good.
Becky and I have known each other for a little while.
We have. We've had a few little chats.
Just one or two.
Great. So you've written a book, or you wrote it during COVID, is that right? You've written a book called Keanu Reeves Is Not in Love with You, which is, I'm showing here.
Yeah, you're showing it, but as I sort of found out before we started recording this, you didn't actually buy your own copy.
I'm so
you
sorry.
Stole Lou's copy, so I'm not having you take any credit for that. I didn't write the book during COVID. I started a Twitter account during COVID, which kind of led on to writing the book. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for COVID, basically. I'm kind of the only person I know that actually came out of the pandemic in a better place than when I went in.
You're one of those annoying people that actually did well during the pandemic, whereas everyone else was just signing up to wine clubs and gin clubs and getting drunk every night while having beers with Boris at 5 o'clock. You were there, actually living your best life.
Well, if by that you mean lying on my mum's spare bed on Twitter, then yeah, that's how it was.
Just for people listening, your I was going to say your spinach handle. It's not your spinach handle. Your Twitter handle is @deaf2spinach, isn't it?
It is. Right,
perfect, good. In case people want to listen to it, it's not a spinach handle. That shows how much I use Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah, it is Death to Spinach, which obviously I set that up during COVID, not really knowing that I was going to be doing any of this. So I just kind of came up with what I thought was quite a funny Twitter handle, and now it's just stuck. And I am forever known as the Spinach Woman. So that has now become my handle on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, everything. And
all the socials.
All the socials, and I can't really seem to get away from it.
Well, it's obviously worked. So the book is about your experience online, navigating the world of romance and people contacting you, claiming to be celebrities, and you basically taking the mickey out of them. Yeah
just sort of wasting their time, really.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what, actually, when I started doing it, I thought I was wasting their time and I was feeling quite smug about it. But actually, when I started investigating it, because they kind of work in teams, I'm actually not really wasting anybody's time, but it seemed like that. So, you know,
I guess you're just another drop in the ocean. You're just someone that they're just throwing messages out to, and if they get something back, then great, then they'll respond to it, but they're not really paying much attention.
Yeah, exactly. They don't pay any attention whatsoever until you have kind of given some sort of response, and then they see you as a viable target because you've bothered to, you know, to answer their message. So you're basically scam baiting, really, aren't you? And there was a hilarious story where you were scam. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Liam Neeson. I'm not too sure, but where you actually ended up pretending to be in Stockholm Airport. Is that right? Oh, that was a pilot, a guy pretending to be a pilot, who, you know, fell in love with me immediately, obviously, and said that he was a pilot, he was going to Stockholm, and I kind of managed to convince him through a series of screenshots that I would actually meet him over there. I'd booked a wedding venue, and this guy kind of panicked. I sent him a picture of Birmingham Airport and said, it's really quiet. I'm with you soon, my darling. And he blocked me. So, and that was my first experience of being blocked by a scammer. And I thought, I need some more of this. It's really good.
There's loads of different ones where you basically published your Twitter feed, right?
Yeah, pretty much, but with some intelligent stuff in between.
Yeah, of course.
Although I have to say, when I started writing the book, I thought that it was going to be, you know, like the kind of book that you have in the toilet. Where like, you know, each bit is kind of the length of a wee and you can just sort of read it. I thought it was going to be one of those where it was just my Twitter conversations. It wasn't until my agent said, you know, what are you talking? There's so much to this subject that then it kind of started becoming more than I ever thought it would be.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. And I think it's so refreshing as well because me and Lou, we work for in our day jobs, National Trading Standards Scams Team. It's a government organisation. It talks about fraud and scams, and I sit on the Romance Fraud Working Group, which is hosted by City of London, and we meet once every 6 months and we discuss romance fraud and what we're doing about it, how to raise awareness. But it's also stuffy and boring because it has to be because we're that we can't be seen to be taking a light-hearted approach or doing anything like that. Whereas you've come along and you've kind of blown it out of the water and said, look, you can have fun with this and you can also raise awareness. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where you have to tread a fine line because you can't ever, nor would you ever want to, poke fun at the victims of the crime. This is more about kind of poking fun at the scammer and using humour to be engaging about the subject. So, do you know, I've been to so many meetings and conferences and stuff that where the subject, fraud generally, not just romance fraud, but is spoken about in such a dry way.
It's
and you
tricky.
can see people kind of just switching off. And in conferences, people suddenly, they start kind of looking at their mobile phones because they're bored. And it is such a shame because nobody will ever listen long enough to be educated about it, because why would you?
It's not relatable. That's the problem. We need to make the subject more relatable. But like you say, it's a really fine line between making it relatable and also then the way that the blame and the shame is placed onto the victims.
Yeah.
And the victims are poked fun at. I mean, me and you have had lots of conversations about that, about how that needs to change
Oh,
from a public perception, law enforcement perspective, all of it. The language you use, fell for a scam, if it's too good to be true, all of that.
Yeah.
That's wrong for starters. Without some of the stuff that the media does.
oh, don't even. Oh God, oh.
All the trolls.
I mean, I was kind of planning this for a little bit later, but we might as well talk about it now because we're bringing it up. But the story that's been in the news recently around the lady in France that lost 850,000 euros, was it? Or,
no, £720.
Or had it stolen. I shouldn't say lost. Had it stolen from a online criminal who was an AI Brad Pitt. Is that right?
Yes. The story was horrific. And the thing is, because it's a very complicated crime and, fraudsters it's all based around coercive control, basically. So a victim is essentially groomed to act and to think a certain way. Now, when these pictures came out in the press, and the pictures were awful. These AI images, they were dreadful. And when you're looking at them cold, you would think, why on earth would anybody send money to somebody on the basis of these images? But this lady didn't see these images cold. She'd been speaking to somebody who she believed she was in a relationship with, and these images were kind of drip fed to her along with the rest of the story. So the problem is, what happened is, that the media and worldwide media, can't even just blame the British press. They got hold of it, put these photos up. They put absolutely horrendous headlines up. One of the UK ones said, woman duped over ridiculous AI images.
Yeah.
I mean, I was absolutely fuming. Now, this woman, she lost all of that money. Well, no, again, she had all of that money taken from her, we should say.
But also, Becky, she was situationally vulnerable because that was her divorce settlement. So she was in a situation that was causing her life to be destabilised. So there's situational vulnerability.
Of course. But then the thing that just really got me, and, Lou knows about this because I was so cross, is that the media hounded this woman. Absolutely hounded her. Now, this woman, she allegedly, tried to take her own life and went into psychiatric care. Then a few days later, the media is full of these pieces saying, woman hounded after falling for romance fraud. And I thought, but you hounded her.
Yeah, you're the bugger.
What are you talking about? Exactly, you did it. And it was... when I think about it, I still can't quite get over the hypocrisy of it.
It's just the heat is always on the feet of the victim, always.
Of course.
And I had this, and when I tried to explain this, the morning that we had that conversation was when you'd put your bit up and I put my bit up on LinkedIn about it. And I got so cross about it. I fell out with everybody in my house because I was so cross about it. And also, just the fact that people were laughing.
Yeah.
Of somebody that's just had £720,000 stolen from them, and for some reason that was funny.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in a large part because of how the media portrayed this. Putting up those images that she was sent and not giving any context at all. And that is what we do, not just the media, but that is what we do as a society. We treat victims of romance fraud as laughing stocks. They must be simple, they must be desperate, they must be XYZ. Whatever happened to listening to people's story and to empathy? I just don't understand how it all goes out the window when it comes to romance fraud.
Isn't that something that's changing? And isn't that something it's going to take a long, long time? And we've only kind of scratched the surface of this at the moment around the language, and we're starting to introduce it to law enforcement, and it's going to take a long time to change perception. Potentially it's generational as well. So do you not think it is starting to change, or do you think we're still stuck in the same rut?
I think that we're still stuck in it. I also don't think it's just romance fraud victims, it's clairvoyant scam victims, it's lottery winners, it's large big investment scams, it's pension liberation. Your victims are greedy, stupid, old, or naive, been duped. Why would they think that sort of thing good thing, positive thing would happen to them at all?
Yeah. I agree that I think we're still stuck. I think it would be lovely to think that things are changing. And I think one of the problems we have as a counter-fraud industry, or not even industry, but a people who are passionate about it, is that we all talk about it amongst ourselves and can kind of congratulate each other for using particular language and, aren't we great because we've introduced this, that and the other.
We're so good in our echo chamber.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is it. When it comes to, sort of educating and helping, in inverted commas, normal people, so people are outside of the industry, I don't really think we're any further forward, if I'm honest. I mean, maybe the tiniest bit, but if we were that far forward, we wouldn't be allowing the media to use the derogatory language and to talk about victims in that way. I just don't think we've reached a point yet where we're actually doing enough by any standard.
So we're in the know. We understand this. We understand what language we should be using. We understand why using that historic victim blaming language is wrong. What can we do? What can we do with that knowledge now?
Oh, I hope you're not asking me to answer that.
Lead a mass movement. No. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
But Adam, also, you've got to think about it right from a perspective. So some of the work we've done and we've talked about before, and we talked about with previous guests, with Lucy Wade, with Anna Rowe, with Dr. Elizabeth Carter. Yeah. It's similar to the way we treat victims of domestic abuse. Why didn't you leave? Why did you stay? That sort of thing doesn't happen to people like you. Like mental health. Again, we didn't talk about that. There was shame and you were weak if you had mental health. All of this negative language about things that happen to people. We have shifted some of the narrative in those spaces a little bit, but victims of domestic abuse still get treated like that as well. We haven't managed to nail that down.
It takes a long time to change.
It does.
It does take a long time to change, yeah. And, I've had many conversations with those people you mentioned, and, Liz Carter, I met for the book and we sort of talked quite a bit, because having been in an abusive relationship myself many years ago, when I was talking to victims of romance fraud for the book, I was thinking, oh, hang on a minute, that's weird. That's similar to, that's what I went through. And you do sort of, when I came out of that relationship, I was very lucky that I was able to Google and I came up with some support groups and I went off and I met some people face to face and it was great. We don't currently have that for romance fraud. And I think that is something that should be changed so that people can get together and, I don't know, I guess find their voice and feel more confident. And it could be people outside of the counter fraud world that can start making changes, as well as those of us who do this for a living. So I think there needs to be more done from our side, but also people need to be empowered to feel better about their own situations as well.
So if we talk about coercive control, and this is what we've said, this is grooming of people, this is coercive control, that wasn't a criminal offence until 2015. So we're talking about that emotional abusive side of things. So again, like Ads, you're talking about starting a movement, which we've tried to do within the Scam team by starting the No Blame No Shame campaign, which is we shouldn't be blaming the victims and we shouldn't be shaming the victims. We should be providing that support and treating them like we do other victims of crime. And I'll say it again, you never go, I fell for a mugging or I fell for a burglary. We place all the blame on the victim. So again, it's this sort of podcast and actually continuing to talk about it and making it relatable. So making the subject area interesting and relatable. We can get these messages across. Shouting at people helps sometimes as well when they say
we have been banging
things.
the drum, haven't we?
When they say things like, oh, God, like she was a bit stupid, or God, why would you fall for that? I find shouting really loudly, make them jump, also leaves a mark.
Fully behind that. I love a really massive shout. Yeah.
Yeah.
The lady in question got, I'm not, I want to say duped because it's so ingrained in me, but got defrauded by an AI Brad Pitt. I'm guessing that AI has probably come after you wrote that book, but what are your thoughts around artificial intelligence now and the use that criminals can have to target their potential victims?
Well, I mean, AI has been around for, God, decades, just obviously not used as prevalently. And those images, I'm still not sure that they weren't just Photoshopped, to be honest, because they were very poor AI if they were. AI really, really bothers me. I'm researching a second book at the moment, and it's about the future of fraud. So I'm obviously looking into AI in a really kind of, well, in a capacity that I don't understand because it's all really complicated. I had to look up something that involved numbers the other day, and it was beyond me. But the problem with it is that there is no internet police. So all of this stuff happens online, and you do not know actually what is true and what's not. And at one point when AI came out, there were sort of, you could tell if the mouth was moving slightly odd or the eyes were blinking, whatever. But with something like romance fraud, you could easily say, oh, well, I'm really sorry, the line's not that great, or there's a bit of a delay. And these things can be explained away. And I really, really worry that it's going to have a disastrous impact on, romance fraud, but the world of fraud as a whole. And everybody that I speak to that is really far advanced in the world of AI, when I say to them, what is being done to future-proof, it is still a case of, the fraudsters come up with this, but we've created this. It's still a bit of a catch-up situation.
It is, and law enforcement will always be behind because they've got hurdles to jump through and red tape to get through, whereas criminals don't have that because they are
criminals. And also, this is something I always say when I present places. One of the problems we have is that we don't think like criminals. They're a bit more sneaky, so we're actually at a bit of a disadvantage, even to start with. So what happens is a criminal will come up with something. We'll all say, oh, God, that's clever. Quick, let's find a way out of this. Then that'll happen. Great. But while that was taking place, the criminals have come up with something better.
Yeah.
So
they've always
always
one step
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the AI stuff, it might have been rubbish images a year ago, but it is moving so quickly. It is getting better and better at such an exponential rate, isn't it? That it's just going to be pretty much perfect very, very soon.
Yeah, I spoke to a guy the other day who has worked in AI for a long, long time. And he said that in the last 2 years, AI has moved further than he thought it would in 10. So that in itself, we're talking about somebody who's at the top of his game here. Even that. And I'm thinking, are we sort of heading towards this weird robotic future?
I think we're going to end up going back the other way. I think we're going to end up going back the other way. People are like they're introducing like don't get Adam started on the subject, but phones that you can just ring people on, not smartphones. They're reintroducing them. They're trying to make them like sexy for people so
Brick
that we don't
phones.
spend our lives. I think, yeah. But like that, but if we are so far behind on everything. Not to just hark back to that point, but if you think it wasn't a criminal offence to coercively control somebody until 2015, so like less than 10 years ago. So we didn't recognise that from a law enforcement perspective as a criminal offence when you're controlling somebody's every move so that you can make them do whatever you want, and that wasn't a criminal offence until like 10 years ago this year.
It's weird, isn't it? It's like
we're so far behind.
Like with physical health and mental health. So if you were physically controlling somebody's every move, you'd be banged up for that straight away.
You locked them in a house.
Yeah.
You locked them in a house. But if you can mentally control them through coercive controlling behaviour, that wasn't an offence.
Yeah.
That's all right. Just don't put your hands on them. Don't touch them physically or lock them in anywhere.
Do you know, when I was completely off the point now, but when I was a teenager, I had a stalker, and we went to the police, and I was told back then that if he doesn't touch you, there's nothing they can do.
No.
So even though he used to follow me home from school like a metre behind me, terrifying, saying all sorts of horrible stuff, because he didn't touch me, they couldn't do anything to him. And it's kind of, you look back at that now and you think, what? I was 13, he was 18. That's so weird. So I only hope that the fact that we can't understand why things are so backwards now. I only hope that in a few years' time, we're having the same reaction and saying, God, can you believe that it used to be like this?
But if you think about romance fraud or the way that the world's moving in the fact that to go dating now, most people do it on the internet. That's the way forward in relation to this. So you've broadened the net significantly for the criminals to be able to target people. We're in like a pandemic of mental health and loneliness, particularly with younger people because of COVID and smartphones, and they isolate us and the overwhelm and underwhelm and all this lot. There's a whole, I had a meeting last week, there's a whole range of sextortion scams and they're targeted at 16 to 24-year-olds as well. We're in a hotbed of positions where younger people or people that are lonely are going to be targeted by these clever, they don't even need to be the AI related romance fraud. Romance fraud is really bloody successful without the artificial.
The brain sees what the brain sees, or the brain wants to see, and we're so good at filling in the gaps in the correct or incorrect way, I should say.
Yeah, one of the reasons that romance fraud is so successful as a crime is because you can't stop people wanting to love and be loved.
Yeah.
That is...
Should we? Nor should we.
Really but, the human race, if we didn't have that need or that desire, we would have, fizzled out by now. So that's always,
it's a true story.
Yeah, potentially not a bad thing. But so that's the thing. We always have this innate need to connect with other people. No matter what gender you're attracted to or what age or, what race or whatever it is, we have this need. So that will never, ever go.
No, and let's not change that.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not.
I mean, I found my fiance online.
On what app?
No.
On a dating site.
Well done. Oh, sorry, Louise, we're not allowed to say the app, are we not, Lou?
Is that what you want? I don't like it when you start to talk about particular companies that you have really bad bias about.
Oh,
Lou panics when I ever mention any organisations.
I don't panic. It's just Adam's opinion comes across as fact.
I was just going to say an online dating platform.
Okay, let's go with that. Let's leave it at that. Right. So you are writing a new book around AI. Now, does the Taskmaster feature in the new book?
Oh.
Do we need to talk about this for a bit? Lovely Greg.
Talk about Greg whenever you like. I mean, literally whenever you like. You can message me at 3 a.m. and I will ring you to talk about Greg.
So in the first book, you talk about your infatuation with Greg Davis from Taskmaster and just how amazing he is. I also have the infatuation with him. I absolutely love him. Taskmaster is by far my most favourite TV programme in the whole wide world. He is an amazing man. Has he ever been in touch with you?
I've actually met him.
Me and Adam did our Taskmaster party for our 40th.
We did.
Did you?
We did.
Yeah, it was really good.
We had 60 people running around Eastbourne for a whole day doing stupid tasks. It was hilarious. So how did you meet? How did you meet Greg? When did you meet him?
I met him about 12 years ago, something like that. Okay. It was when I was working in PR in financial services, and he was doing like the after dinner speech kind of thing, and I was already obsessed with him at that point because it was the in-betweeners. And in my smoking days, I was outside the venue having a fag. He walked past. I took my shoes off so that I could run full pelt at him, which I did.
Did you jump on him and like wrap your legs around him? I hope
he's massive, isn't he? He's massive.
He is massive. Oh yeah, he's 6'8", but I'm 5'10".
Is
so,
he?
He's
6'8".
Yeah.
I'm 4'9". That's brilliant. That would be brilliant.
2 foot taller than
that
you.
would be such a good photo.
No, I'd need to be in the middle because I'm 5'10", so we could be like. Yep. Do you remember that sketch with like the John Cleese? Yeah, I look up to him. Yeah. No, I didn't.
Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should ask him if you're listening. Do you want a photo with us?
Do you know, I don't think if Greg knows anything about what I've written about him, I don't think he would come anywhere near me. I think he'd be terrified. Yeah. But no, anyway, I went running up to him in my bare feet, in the rain, very drunk, told him that I loved him, and he was actually incredibly rude to me.
Oh, that's not a nice story.
It's not nice. And everyone else says how amazing he is when they've met him. But, you know, and I've always been very disappointed. But then when I think back on it from his perspective, you know, I would have been rude to me as well.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
And I am actually prepared to forgive him as well.
Well, let's put a message out there. Let's get in.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I've got a few questions about around the book. Did you find that there was one celebrity being used? Who were the celebrities that were being used mainly?
Well, the book's called Keanu Reeves Is Not in Love with You for a reason, because Keanu Reeves is by far the most impersonated celebrity.
And that's because he's the perfect man, and the PR around him talks about how he does so many good things for all sorts of people, yeah?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think, you know, around the world, he's kind of known. I mean, for a start, he's been in some of the biggest films there are, even if it's not your bag. You know, I don't particularly like his films, but yeah, The Matrix, everyone knows John Wick, everyone knows Bill and Ted, you know, all that kind of stuff. So he's known in probably every country in the world. You never hear anything bad about him.
No.
You know, and so I think there's just this kind of feeling of trustworthiness. Let's face it, he's pretty easy on the eye.
Yeah.
You know, no one's really going to say no, are they?
Nope.
No, I mean, he's not really my cup of tea, but if I got home and he was there, you know, I'm probably not going to ask him to leave.
It's not my cup of tea either, but I think I'd probably be like, all right, whilst you're here.
Well, yeah, exactly. While you're here, but can you leave? Because, you know, Phil's due home at 6. So that's he's a big one. Brad Pitt's used, Liam Neeson, Jason Statham. Although I haven't seen any of Jason Statham used for a bit, and you know, I can't imagine that was that successful because I just think he's awful. Interestingly, the royal family. So Prince William is used quite a lot, as is Prince Harry, and also and now this one is a really, really popular impersonation, and that is the Crown Prince of Dubai.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he's used particularly on gay dating sites. And the reason for that is it's quite clever, really. So for a start, he's really good looking. Secondly, he's like a scuba diver, a horse rider, an archer. He's like basically just kind of everything that you would want somebody to be. He's a poet, he's a scholar. But more importantly, he can say to somebody, listen, you know, I'm a member of a royal family of a Muslim country. I cannot say that I'm gay.
Secrecy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Therefore...
And it's together in a club then, isn't it? Then you're like together, it's united with the secret.
So it's that whole kind of trauma bonding thing. He can say, you know, you must understand, as another gay man, you must understand how it...
Codependency,
Yeah, exactly. So that's... I've seen that a lot.
I read this weekend an article, a whole, like in Take a Break. I like a Take a Break magazine when I'm on holiday.
Yep.
But no,
carry on.
I know, but it's Take a Break. My mum got it for me when I went away. And there was the first story in there was around this lady that was a victim of romance scams. And it moved on a little bit because she was a victim of a romance scam for 6 years. She gave him thousands of pounds. And what they did, then they were romance scammers. They turned out to be, I think it ended up being a Nigerian gang. They turned on her at the end because she disengaged with them because their daughter got involved. And then they threatened her with the pictures that she'd sent them. And then they sent the intimate pictures that she'd sent to her daughter. Like it went on and on and on. But they twisted really quickly. So they turned really nasty really quickly and then started to blackmail her. So it's not just about people going, oh, I'm in love and now I've just had to give them money for a plane ticket and this sort of stuff. It can turn really nasty. Like the effects of that, of your kid receiving pictures of your bits, like that's just
Yeah, I don't know whether you
horrible.
remember, but one of the people that I interviewed for the book, I'm not going to say her name because I can actually, at the moment, only remember her real name, which I didn't use in the book. But she was with somebody, in a relationship with somebody who she'd met online, And it wasn't for very long. And I think he took a few £100 from her. Now, she realised what was happening because he'd made this mistake on his social media. And she called him out on it. And immediately he turned really nasty. So she sent him, I nearly said lost then. She sent him a few £100 as part of a romance fraud, but then as part of a sextortion scam, because she had previously sent him intimate images, she then handed over 14,000. So,
Whoa.
yeah. And this was because he was then on her Facebook. He knew exactly who her children were. He knew who her grandchildren were. And suddenly it's not a case of, oh, my darling, I need some money. Suddenly it's a case of, hey, I tell you what, if you don't pay me, everyone's going to see this and your face is in it. So it's not just, like you say, Lou, it's not just this kind
and also, those people realistically aren't going to get prosecuted. It's not like somebody who, if you date somebody that lives in your town and they then share indecent images of you, they can go to prison for that. That can happen. But if they're abroad, they're not going to get tracked down by law enforcement.
What I wanted to ask was, are there any... you finished, Lou? You finished?
No, me and Becky are talking. Shut them.
Right. What I wanted to ask was on the flip side. So we've done the male celebrities. What about female celebrities? I spoke to a trading standards officer last week who was talking to me about a male romance fraud victim who's been defrauded by someone claiming to be Emma Watson from the Harry Potter films. So are there any stories of female celebrities as well?
Yeah, so Jennifer Aniston apparently is used quite a lot. And again, I think, Friends. Yeah. Every country in the world had Friends. So they all know that. She's obviously incredibly beautiful. She's known to be, single a lot of the time. Doesn't seem to have much luck with men. God knows why, because she seems absolutely lovely and she's stunning. Yeah, I mean... what I will say is there isn't really any celebrity that couldn't be used, male or female. So... and it's not just, kind of Hollywood A-listers either. It's people like, so Holly Willoughby, for example, she's been used loads. So it's anyone really who is notable and who somebody thinks that somebody is flattered to be approached by.
One final question before I wrap it up. Has Keanu Reeves been in touch with you?
Well, to be honest, actually, I wouldn't know, because if he was to get in touch with me, no, he hasn't. And do you know what? He did a book signing in London a few months ago for his own book.
Did you go?
And I wanted to go because I was going to kind of thrust my book at him and get a photo quickly, but all the tickets sold out. So the publisher did ask Waterstones if they would give him a book. Whether they did or not, I don't know. But he's got this reputation as being the nice guy of Hollywood. Yeah. And I'm actually a bit annoyed, because if he was that nice, he would have been in touch and said, cracking book.
Well, you just seem to have this effect on celebrities.
Actually, maybe, oh my God, maybe
all these celebrities are celebrities. Maybe they all are. And also, have you heard a story of anyone impersonating you yet?
I was contacted by myself on Twitter.
Amazing.
Yeah. And somehow managed to give myself a sister, which I then that sister became ill. Then I asked myself for money. And then I blocked myself somehow. So that was great. That was brilliant. And a part of me, I mean, I know how awful this is, but part of me felt sort of honoured to have been...
yeah,
to have been
absolutely.
chosen.
It's almost pride, isn't it? It's like, well, there we go.
Like,
I am now in the celebrity world.
Yeah, important enough to be for the image to be used. I can't help but wonder whether that one, to be honest, was one of my friends.
Oh, mate, man. Don't think about it too much. Just accept
I'm just going with it.
Take it as a win. Becky, we have come to the end of the podcast, I'm afraid. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. The book is still out there. Keanu Reeves Is Not in Love with You. We will put links to it in the show notes. Louise, have you got any final things to say?
I've got actually something to say.
Oh, okay.
In also in the notes, can we start a campaign, #Adam buy your own copy?
Oh,
All right.
The two campaigns. Adam buy your own copy, #Greg photo opportunity.
I edit the podcast,
We're going to start
so I can take
this
this
and
out
move
quite
it.
easily.
No. I'm in charge of all the social media though, Adam, so that's okay.
Louise, anything to add?
No, I think that's it. I'm going to start a campaign. Love it. I love a campaign.
Becky, thank you so much. Final point. If someone thinks that they've been a victim of a romance fraud, or they believe that their friend is being victimized in romance fraud, what should they be doing?
If you believe that you have been the victim of romance fraud, you need to report it. You need to report it to Action Fraud. You may not see anything as a result of this, but it's important to report everything so that we know what a big crime, widespread crime this is. If you believe somebody you know is part of a fraudulent relationship, what I would say is just make sure that you are there for them. Don't go in, bull in a china shop. I know what's happening. All you'll do is isolate them. Just make sure that they know that you are there and they can come to you at any time.
Thank you very much. Consumer Friend, available still at consumerfriend.org.uk. Follow us, like us, subscribe, rate, review. Do whatever it is you need to do on that platform to help get our message out there. Becky, thank you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Lou.
Support our Greg photo opportunity campaign.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This is Consumer Friend.